Hello, and welcome to episode number 10 When Love Feels Hard to Get. So, I am recording this podcast, and I realized that I have been recording it since September of 2020. That is almost 2.5 years. And honestly, that really does blow my mind. As you will know, if you have been with me for the past 2.5 years, or if you started listening to this podcast and you started listening to previous episodes, is this podcast started out as a self-love podcast. And I have been experimenting with that message ever since. Um, the reason why I've been experimenting with it and what I think is so fascinating about self-love is that it's actually a super controversial, how do you say it, topic. When we really get into the weeds of love, I think that it's often vilified and it's thought of as a quality that is nice to have. I think it's sometimes when we're loving, it's identified with being weak. And I think that it's just really massively misunderstood. I think love is massively misunderstood. So, we've covered this before, but I think it's important to quantify like what is love? And love is an emotion. Okay. And what that means is that love is something that you feel. And to feel love, we have to think thoughts that allow us to feel love. And some of these things that we think that allow us to feel love are easy. Okay. Like, for instance, when we see a baby, when we pet a puppy, feeling the warmth of the sun on a cold day. But there are also times when we can feel love when it feels hard. It feels hard to get it. It feels hard to produce, right? So, where I'd like you to start is I'd like you to journal on if you're a journaler. And if you're not, just put a pen to paper. Or if you're not a pen to paper person, start typing it in the notes app of your phone. But what does love feel like for me? And what I would like you to do is I would like you to think of your senses. What does love look like? What does love smell like? What does love sound like? What does the touch of it feel like in your body? What does love feel like on your skin? What does it taste like? And I'm not talking about what somebody does or gives to you. I'm talking about the experience of the emotion of love. Now, if you're listening to this and this is really challenging for you, I understand. It used to be challenging for me too. And I was really thinking about the other day, I was thinking back to who and how I used to be and how I am now. And even in the last 2.5 years, I've evolved, right? I've changed. And my capacity for love has increased a lot. My ability to find love in all areas of my love has increased. I have really changed my relationship with love, and it is something that is always and constantly evolving, and it will be for you too. But when I ask you to start writing on what the experience of love is like for you, as far as it being a feeling in your body, it's an opportunity for you to start noticing what your relationship is like with love. Because this is an exercise that I will give to my clients when love feels distant. This is an exercise that I will give to my clients when it seems like love is maybe out of reach for them or when it feels really impossible for them. And there is something that I want to offer you that's super, super important when it comes to the emotion of love. Okay. Love is always within your control. So it is not outside of you, it is inside of you. And that might be confusing. So I'm going to help you with it. I had a colleague post a quote. I was going to read it, but I've decided not to. What I want to do, though, is really share the idea of this quote and what the quote basically referenced. I honestly can't even remember who said it, but what it referenced was the idea of you have to have self love you have to love yourself fully in order to love another person. This is something that I hear a lot. And I think that I maybe at one point, maybe even said that, but it's really not something that I believe anymore. That being said, what this person was saying inside of this quote was that if you've never experienced love, you won't be able to understand what that experience is like. So, for instance, babies that are born into this world can be loved, and yet they've never had an experience of love. So, their first, you know, example of love is the love that's given to them once they're born, right? And that they start defining love based on what is given to them. And I do agree that that is true. And what I will say about that is that our experience of love defines how we see love, right? What somebody does and says to us when we're young, in particular, and how they treat us is how we tend to look at love. But I think that that version of love, that way that love is being described in this instance, it isn't the feeling of love, though. Okay. Because that is more the rationalization of love. That is more the experience of being in a relationship with somebody that maybe is supposed to love you. That is the relationship of somebody caring for you. That is the relationship of somebody feeding you and housing you and meeting your basic needs. Right. And maybe for some of you listening to this podcast, that's not something that you've ever really experienced. And I can totally, respect that. So, why I want to pull this apart here a little bit is because it is going to be easier for some of us to experience love than for others. And that is true. And oftentimes that is because of how we have been treated in our past. Okay. So by no means do I think that all of us have equal accessibility to the feeling of love. I do not believe that. I believe that our access to the feeling of love is deeply impacted by past trauma, by how we were raised, by whether or not we experienced abuse. All of these things impact our ability to experience love when we are not in charge of it. Okay. And I think I really I want to speak on that a little bit, because when I say we're in charge of it, I think that potentially that could be misunderstood as meaning some of us are better at it than others. And that is 100% not what I mean. I don't think some of us are better at it than others. I don't think that any of us are more deserving of love than others. I don't think that the reason why you can't experience love is because there's something super fucked up in you. I don't believe that either. Okay. So I'm really going to take you through this to help you maybe heal your relationship with love. Okay. There are times in our life when people say they love us and how they treat us is completely not that. Not because we don't want to receive love that way, but because nobody would want to receive love that way, because that isn't love. Okay. So I get that it can be confusing when I'm talking about love and love being an emotion and love being accessible to you, when at the same time, it's also true that some actions could never be perceived as being loving by the person receiving it, like things like abuse, right? What I am going to say is that I think of love as being the experience in my own body of how love feels to me because of how I want it to feel. So it's not contrived, but it is created. It is created from my deepest core. It is created from my gut. Okay. And I do believe that being able to do that is actually just a skill. I do think it's available to all of us. I think that we all can do it. I think that it's difficult to do it sometimes. So, where I kind of want to take this is really looking at what does love feel like for you? Like we're going to just go full circle, right? Back to that first exercise where I said to you, what is the experience of love like for you? And what I will say is that if you don't know because you don't have access to that, then what I will add as an addendum is, what do you want it to feel like? What do you want love to feel like in your body? What do you want love to look like? What do you want love to smell like? What do you want love to sound like? Really tapping into that. What do you want love to taste like? This is where we have autonomy. We get to decide how we want our body to feel. Okay. We get to decide how we want to experience our senses. And I'm not saying that you're going to take this and now paste this over some shit ass relationship you have right now. Okay. It's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that we want to connect to that part of us. And for many of us, that has been disconnected. And it's been disconnected because of the things that have happened in our life up until this point. And if that is you, I am sending so much love and compassion to you because that also used to be me. Like I could actually start crying as I'm telling you this. So, what I will say is that it's a vulnerable thing connecting back to that love. It almost feels impossible and it feels wrong. It feels like you can't have it because you've never had it. It feels like you can have it, but it's only if somebody else says it's okay to have it. So it's almost like we're like this little snail in our shell, right? And we're like, I'm going to step out of this shell and I'm going to put a new shell on, right? Because that's what snails do. It's fascinating, actually. So I'm going to put on a new shell, and that shell is going to allow me to experience love. To a certain extent, being able to access love is a reinvention. You are reinventing you. And that sounds scary as shit. What I will tell you is that if you make that choice, if you make that really, really scary choice to start experiencing love again, but decide that it's going to be on your fucking terms, you can have it. That is what I do with my clients. I do that with my clients, and every single one of them experiences it. And the reason why I can do that with them is because I know exactly how to do that. It takes time. It does. It takes a decision to want it. It takes vulnerability. It takes courage because it's scary. Leaning into courage is how you are going to start accessing love again. It's okay if you don't love how you look. It's okay if you don't love how you are. It's okay if you don't love how you show up. It's okay. It's totally okay. But what I will tell you is that the most courageous thing you will ever, ever do is start tapping into that side of you that is going to define love the way that you want to define it. Now, what I don't mean by that is that you go out in the world and you start demanding that people treat you in a certain way so that you can feel love. And you'll notice if you listen to all of my other episodes that there's tons of episodes on relationships and how to, navigate them in a way that you have the ultimate control, which of course is always your control of you. But when it comes to the experience of self-love, when it comes to being able to experience love at all, we start small. We start by cultivating the experience of it. We start by creating it within ourselves. We start by deciding what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, what it's going to smell like, what it's going to look like. Did I say that already? Taste like. That is how we start, because that's the essential first step. Okay. The essential first step is knowing, what does love even fucking feel like? You need to know. And it isn't go back and figure out what it maybe used to feel like, because maybe you never knew. So now you get to decide what it's going to feel like. For me, what does love look like? Love looks relaxed. Love looks free. Love looks like a release. When I think about what does love feel like in my body, it feels large. It feels expansive. It feels like it's vibrating in this beautiful, pulsing way. What does love sound like? It sounds like bells ringing, like really nice ones, though. Okay, not like the bell at the cashier, but like beautiful bells. It sounds like chimes. It sounds like a slight breeze rustling through the trees. What does it taste like? It tastes sweet, but not too sweet. It tastes light. It tastes refreshing. That is my experience of love. That is what I decide love is going to be like for me. And then I go out in the world and I lean into the things that give me that. Lean into the people that give me that. Do you see what I'm saying? When I think about turning that love around and aiming it at myself, I sink into the sensation of that. And that's how I use it to see myself. It is a little bit of a mind bender. But what it is it's an exercise in creating that new shell for yourself. You don't need anybody's permission. Nobody else needs to think it's okay. Nobody knows the right way for you. I don't know the right way for you. I can't tell you what that looks like for you. What I can tell you is that you can have it. And I can tell you exactly how to go out in the world and create it. And I can tell you that you definitely deserve it. So if you are ready for that, it's time we talk, okay? So you just go over to my website, fuckyourdisorder.com. You go and book a strategy call with me and we talk about it. And I'll show you how this applies to you, because I fucking got you. You deserve this. Everybody deserves this. Is love hard to get? Yes. But love isn't hard to create. Love is something that you can absolutely create for yourself. Is it hard? I guess it is. Can you do it? I know you can. Is it possible for you? 100%. Okay, my friend, it's my little pep talk for you today. Thank you for being here. If you want to see more about what I'm sharing about love, go over to @fuckyourdisorder on Instagram. I am talking about it all week. And I'll see you here next time. Bye.